Well, hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome down the Nook. It's a Saturday, and I want to take a moment from all the chores to shoot a little bit of malt or Scotch whiskey with you guys. And I thought I'd stay in sherry because over the last certainly half a year now, almost a year, I've been collecting a few more sherry bottles. These are both a little more on the value side, and I'll ship. I'll sip and taste them with you guys and do a bit of a comparison. So first up, we're going to talk about Naked Grouse, or now I've been told it's called the Naked Malt. But this certainly is available. There's some interesting things about it, but lots of sherry influence on this. And then I'll talk about this Nomad Outland whiskey as well. So why don't you pour a little bit of sherried Scotch or sherried blended whiskey. When we come back, we'll talk Naked Grouse and the Nomad. 3, 4. Thanks for coming back and staying with me. Hopefully you've poured a little something so you can relax and we can talk some Scotch. The first up is Naked Grouse, and it's from the Edrington Group, which really doesn't need any introduction. The famous Grouse series of blended Scotch is wildly popular throughout the world, very affordable and a pretty decent dram. Now this release, which I think is now the Naked Malt, but this Naked Grouse is really, sherry forward. And by that is, it's a blended malt, so it's all malt whiskey. So this is still all barley. There's no grain whiskey in here. Where I'm at, it's released at 43%, which is nice. And it says right on here that, it's matured in first fill sherry casks. So pretty cool. I still think it's colored and chill filtered, which it wouldn't need to be at 43. Perhaps I'm wrong, but certainly all malt, aged an undisclosed amount of time, but in first fill. I thought when it first came out, it was aged in a mix of first and second fill casks, and then it was finished in first fill. But it says on the back, it's matured in first fill sherry casks. So they've upped their game. Let's see what the Naked Grouse says, nose and palate. It's a nice, rich sherried nose. It's fruity, it's light fruity, a little bit of cherry, a little bit of raisin. There's a few light baking spices in the back, nothing peppery, nothing really grabbing at my nose. Now this bottle's been open a little while, so anything sharp maybe has gone its own way. But that is an approachable, sweet nose, relaxed, a little bit more cherry than raisin for me. It's kind of a bright fruit. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. First sip, there's a nice balance between some malt sugars, almost a graham cracker, and more of that fruiting, and a little bit in that early finish, some spicing starts to pick up. Let's try another sip. A few more layers actually. A little bit of oil, a little bit of light almond or marzipan, and now some casking influence in the finish, and then it hangs around, right? So the subsequent sips, I can get a little more of that oaking, a little more casking, a little more of that rougher sherried wood that I sometimes get with a lot of ex-sherry. Yep, that's definitely building a little more of that. Musty wood. Very interesting. I've had people tell me this is like their absolute favorite. And then Cousin Brad actually didn't really like it. And when I finally got around to trying it, and I have been kind of sipping on it for quite a while, I have to say I really like it. I don't find it terribly complex. I don't know if it's going to win hearts and minds, but then it might, because this is just, well, frankly, it's just really drinkable. And certainly at the price that it's at, I think it really competes well with drams that are significantly more expensive. Having said that, this is not in my opinion, although the flavors are sherry forward and fruit forward, and certainly you would recognize that, oh, this is a sherried malt. Like I don't think anyone wouldn't get that. You would get that. I suggest. It's always just my palate, but it's not a sherry monster. By that, it's not thick and resinous, or playing into the edge of sulfur or the cough syrup it's got none of that. It's really quite light and enjoyable. It reminds me a fair amount of like Abelor 12, or what's another one that I'm trying to think that are really sherry influenced, but also just kind of nice light scotches. In fact, I would be, for first fill, I'm surprised at how like I could almost say, like, is there some ex-bourbon in there? Because there's a fair amount of malt characteristic and a little bit of honeyness in there, but I like it. I actually like it quite a lot, and for the price, I could see this being a regular rotation on the shelf, even with access to all the good stuff that I have. Rating, I'm gonna have to put it 3.5, 3 3/4, somewhere in there. It's quite good. But critically, I don't think it's going to, knock off any top spots for some really big whiskeys. So I wanted to also start with another somewhat affordable but full sherried experienced bottle. Now this one is kind of different. Nomad Outland Whiskey. And I'm going to have to put the name of the blender and the people behind it in some credits here, because I'm missing it right now. But I do know that this starts its life in Scotland. It's a mix of 5 and 8 year old malts, but also grain whiskey, and aged in sherry casks of a variety of sorts. And then it makes its way to Spain, where it says, look, finished in sherry casks in Jerez. I'm like, it can't be a J. It's got to be more like Jerez. Spain, and deep apologies for mispronouncing. Please feel free to correct me. But I do believe it spends, after that mix of 5 and 8 year old whiskeys, it goes to Spain and it ages a full year in Pedro Jimenez or PX sherry casks. So there's likely whiskey in here as old as 9 years, but there could be as young as 6. But kind of interesting. Oh, and it's 41.3%, and I believe this one is unchill filtered. But I thought it said it on the bottle, and now I don't see it. But kind of a cool looking bottle and an interesting story. And like I said, in my market, 45 Canadian, that's pretty good. Let's try it on the nose and the palate. This is a heavier sherry influence. Yeah, like this, I get a little mix of now some nice light chocolates, some nuts, whereas this is that thicker raisin sherry comes up pretty quick, and a lot of sweetness, almost like powdered sugar sweetness. Let's try it on the palate. Gotcha. It could be that we're stepping down in percent. Oh, there we go. I was going to say, but the first taste was lighter. The nose was thicker. The taste was lighter. Now I'm getting some raisins, some figs. Yeah, it's coming up on that second sip, or that second reflection. I mean, let's try another sip. Very interesting. The core dram, when I'm moving it around, is sweet, very sweet, but the finish and the nose are a darker, more resinous, more thicker sherry. The whole experience comes off lighter somehow, even with mentioning those flavor notes. Although now it's got a decent finish. The grain doesn't come out too much for me. It's got a little bit of slight metallic. It's got a little bit of certain things that are hinting to a younger grain whiskey, but not bad. I also enjoy sipping this. For me, it's a little less enjoyable than the Naked Malt or Naked Grouse. So this is certainly a 3.5, whereas this, I could give it a 3 3/4. Both of these, I said, in my market are surprisingly affordable, and certainly if you're on a bit of a sherry influenced whiskey journey, I would say give them a try. I do give the nod to this one just a little more than the Nomad, but certainly both are worth checking out. thanks for dropping in. Hope you guys are having a good Saturday. I got to run off to my next chore, but I do hope you've had a good week, and maybe we'll catch you tomorrow. Hopefully I can get some time to shoot some samples. You guys take care.